Hey everyone, BruinBound here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the most important topic, in my opinion, when it comes to jumping to Deity in Civilization V, and that is growth. Growth actually is directly correlated to the amount of science you actually make as an empire. The population that you have goes through the multipliers from the library, university, and those types of buildings to determine the science that you're going to produce each turn. That means that it's really important to grow your cities as soon as you possibly can so you can start getting the population as high as you can. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as just locking all the growth tiles and letting the game play out for itself. There are actually times, like if you're going for a strategic wonder or when you're pumping out settlers, that you actually want to be doing more production. Early on, I actually switched from a 2 food, 2 gold tile to a 2 food, 1 hammer tile. The hammers are more important than the gold. Behind growth, you have production, and then after that, I would say these gold tiles. There's lots of ways to make money in Deity, and usually selling resources is going to be much more valuable than working a 2 gold tile. Now, I actually jumped ahead a bit, and this is when I'm about to start producing settlers. Since I want to grow as soon as possible, I actually want all my cities up as soon as possible. So after the first 2 scouts, and in this case a granary, I'm going to produce 3 straight settlers. To get them to be built as quickly as possible, the best thing is usually working a bunch of hills. In this case, since I had time for the granary and we have that horse tile, the food is actually factoring in pretty well, so I don't need to just work 3 hills. I can actually work some of those tiles and I can pump them out in 10 turns. However, I'm still going to go as quickly as possible to improve those tiles to get the settlers out faster. As you see, I'm already have most of my cities up. In order to actually do this, I need to be improving those luxuries and also those tiles that are producing the settlers. Improving the luxuries actually creates the happiness that allows your other cities to grow. To do this while I'm mainly just building settlers and granaries is because I've been stealing workers. If you haven't watched my video on stealing workers, it's very important for this strategy of growing quickly and early to pay off. When you're finishing up with that last settler, you usually have an opportunity to build a caravan. Now, in this case, I was building a granary first in New York, which means I'm going to actually be able to put food back to the capital. Since I'm playing tradition, the happiness penalty from capital is much less, and the food is going to make a big difference in terms of my growth. My settlers are all out, and it's time for my capital to grow, and this internal trade route is going to be very important. It's actually very surprising to me how many people who are making the jump to Deity are used to sending external trade routes, going to another civilization for some golden science. In Deity, they're actually kind of good because you do get a lot of research because you're so far behind. But in Immortal and things like that, I can't imagine why anyone would actually do it. The internal trade routes are so good and they create such a solid base for your empire, you can't overlook them. Because my capital was on a river, I actually got to civil service as quickly as I could after my national college, and now these farm tiles are really starting to pay off. As you can see, my food has jumped to plus 22, and I'll start growing every 3 or 4 turns from here on out, which is going to allow me to work the university and guild slots as soon as I'm able to build them. At this point of the game, there's not anything that is really crucial to be built. I'm actually creating a stable just for some extra production, so I'm not going to really be working those super high hammer tiles. I'm going to be working as many food tiles as I can. I also have granaries up in all my satellite cities. Now jumping ahead further in the game, after I finish hooking up my empire with the roads, I'm actually going to go and make sure I have everything farmed that I can possibly farm. Most of the bonus and luxury resources have all been improved, and it's time to grow. My capital has all the guilds up, and I'm sending internal trade routes from each of my cities to my capital. It's now actually in the late game, and all of my trade routes are internal, and they're all giving food. I have 3 going to my capital from each of my cities, and I actually have 2 going to Philadelphia, which was the last city I built, and was actually struggling for food. There was a lot of spices and plantation resources that don't give high food, so I'm actually feeding it. Usually 1 trade route is enough. This was actually a mistake that I have the second one, but sending an internal trade route to a city is almost never a mistake. It usually pays off. So if there's anything you learn from this, do some internal trade routes and grow those cities. By focusing on growth, you're going to have very large cities. The capital alone is probably going to be a size 35 or 40. When you pop those great scientists at the end of the game, which hopefully you have saved, you're going to be able to blast through the end of the tech tree and be ready to build a spaceship.